Here we go. Rambam, Hilchot, Kiddush, Hachodesh. Okay, so the sanctification of the new moon is a positive mitzvah, the lunar months of the year. So we follow the lunar months of the year. Nowadays, when Rosh Chodesh is, we know when it is because we have a calendar, which follows a 19-year cycle calendar fixed by Hillel the Elder. So today there's no more guessing. We don't need to go out and actually look at the moon, even though there's people that still go out there and try to find the new moon to find out if it's really Rosh Chodesh or not. Okay, and during the time of the Beis Hamikdash stood, a time with the Beis Din, the authority, the calendar, the new moon was set and sanctified by the Beis Din. A lunar month is a month which makes up the Hebrew calendar, and the months are totaled to approximately 29 and a half days. And so, like I was saying, the problem is you can't have a month start at noon. You have 29 and a half days. That doesn't really equal out properly. You can't have a month start at noon. You can't do that. So if the lunar month is approximately 29 and a half days, we round it off. A lunar year, so we round off the months in a lunar year. Every 6 months has 29 days, and the next 6 months have 30 days, give or take, to get rid of that half problem. So if you have 6 months of 30 days, that's 180 days. 6 months of 29 days, subtract 6, you have 180 plus 174, because if you subtract 6 from 180, that's 174. So 180 plus 174 days equals 354 days. 354 days is the lunar year. Okay? And the lunar month is either 29 or 30 days. If it's 29 days, then the 30th day is Rosh Chodesh, the first day of the new month. If it's 30 days, then the 31st day is Rosh Chodesh. So in our world, in our time, a 29-day month, where the 30th day is Rosh Chodesh, means we have 1 day as Rosh Chodesh. And today, a 30-day month, where the first day of the next month is the 31st day, means we have 2 days of Rosh Chodesh. So it's all set. It's already set for us. During the time the Beis Hamikdash stood, Rosh Chodesh could either be proclaimed on day 30, which means you would have a 29-day month, or on day 31, which means you would have a 30-day month. So how would they determine this? They would have witnesses come and say, we saw the new moon. Now, the new moon is not necessarily visible everywhere. And when people thought they would think they saw the new moon, they would rush to Jerusalem to testify. And a big meal was prepared for the witnesses. They would make a big meal. Why would they make a big meal? Because it had to be at least 2 witnesses, but they would encourage more than 2 witnesses. And they wanted to give an incentive, motivation, to have people come and witness. Otherwise, maybe they wouldn't come and show up, wouldn't care. At least now they're coming for a big meal. It's a bit of a celebration. And the Beis Din would cross-examine the witnesses to see if they knew what they were talking about, because the court actually knew where the new moon would appear or be, exactly where it would be. They were masters of astrology, and they already knew the calculations. They knew the calculations of when the new moon would appear, how it would appear, even a month earlier. So they knew if the witnesses would be lying or not. So the court, based upon the testimony, would determine whether they're credible witnesses. And they would proclaim Rosh Chodesh. It's not even the witnesses that sanctify the new moon. and they're not even the ones to proclaim it. It's the Beis Din that actually, it's still the authority that would claim the new moon. And so when the witnesses would finally arrive in Jerusalem, it was most likely only a few hours left of the appearing of the new moon when the new moon would actually be sanctified, because, well, I'm going to explain why. There would only be a few hours left, so there wasn't much celebrating for Rosh Chodesh. Okay, so now we begin with the Rambam. This is Halakha, this is oral Torah that we're learning right now, Mishneh Torah, the Rambam Maimonides, chapter 1, the laws of Hilchot, Kiddush, Hachodesh. And he begins by saying that this is a positive mitzvah to calculate, to determine and establish the day on which each of the months of the year will begin. So he begins off by saying the months of the year are lunar months, as implied by Numbers, Bamidbar 28, verse 14. The burnt offering of the month, when it is renewed, and Exodus 12:2, this month shall be for you the first of the months. Concerning this verse, Chazal, our sages, commented, the Holy One, blessed is He, Hachodesh Baruch Hu, showed Moshe in the vision of prophecy an image of the moon and told him, when you see the moon like this, sanctify it. The years we follow are solar years, as implied by Devarim 16:1. Keep the month of spring. Okay, so although the months are lunar, the years we calculate are solar. And this is why other religions' holidays are sometimes in the winter and sometimes in the summer. They rotate, like Ramadan in the Islam faith doesn't always, it's not always at the same time of the year. It's in different times. But the Torah says we should not do that. That Passover is always in the spring. And so we have the lunar months, but the solar calendar, where I think Christianity runs on a pure solar calendar and Islam runs on a pure lunar calendar. But we have the left and the right, but we stay in the middle. So we are balanced. And the Torah says, make sure Passover comes out in spring. So how is Passover going to come out in spring if you're following lunar months? If there is 354 days to a lunar year, 365 days to a solar year, you're missing 11 days. Understand this. This is important. So 365 minus 354, you have 11 days. Every 3 years, you will have approximately 33 days. So the month before Pesach Adar. So yeah, let's go to verse 2 here. It says, how much longer Vechama Yisara Shanat Hachama Al Shanat Havana. How much longer is a solar year than a lunar year? Approximately 11 days. Therefore, to correct the discrepancy between the lunar and the solar calendars, when these additional days reach a sum of 30 or slightly more or slightly less, an additional month is added, causing the year to include 13 months, which is called a full year, or basically a pregnant year, I believe. And this is necessary because it is impossible to have a year with 12 months and an odd number of days, as implied by Bamidbar 28, verse 14. Of the months of the year, on this verse, Chazal commented, you count the months of a year, but not the days of a year. So, just like in the Gregorian calendar, for a leap year, we add 1 day, February 29th. to balance out the calendar. The Jewish year, we add a whole month, Adar Sheni. Nowadays, it's all fixed in the 19-year calendar. There is a leap year every 2 or 3 years in 7 times of the 19-year cycle calendar. 7 leap years because we're losing 11 days a year. 13 months is a pregnant or leap year, they call it. All right. Everybody cool? Everybody questions or anything before I go on? Perfect. Verse 3. The moon becomes hidden. It's concealed. It cannot be seen for approximately 2 days, or slightly less or slightly more. Every month, approximately 1 day before its conjunction with the sun at the end of the month, and 1 day after its conjunction with the sun before it is sighted in the west in the evening. So let me explain a bit. The moon is concealed every month. It is not seen in almost 2 days out of the month. The very end of the lunar month and the very beginning is when we don't see the moon. A little more, a little less, depending on the details, making it all come together. Why would the moon be concealed? So in the footnotes, it says the term conjunction, the sun, moon, and the earth. So the Mishneh Torah actually, I don't know if you guys can see this. Can you guys see this picture right here? Anybody? Yeah, no. Is everybody sleeping?
Not clearly when you have the sharing on your window.
Yeah, that's why I want to try to position it so everybody can see.
It's not focused either. We can see, even if we bring it close, that's the only way, like really close.
How's that?
Perfect.
But where are you trying to show it? It's not a diagram, or
It just, yeah, letters, paragraphs. And then we see the sun and the moon on the bottom.
That's what I'm trying to show you right there.
Yes.
okay.
You guys see it?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. I don't even have my screen in front of me because of the text. But anyways, I'm gonna explain it anyways. But the conjunction means that the sun, the moon, and the earth are all aligned in a straight path, basically, all right? They're all aligned in a straight line. And the moon reflects no light at all because it's blocking the sun going to the earth, okay? The moon is there, but we can't see it. So this will happen 1 day before the conjunction at the end of the month. And 1 day after, it will be seen in the west in the evening, all right? A lot of people out there say that the rabbi screwed up the calendar and this and that, and they tell me they're wrong and they're doing this. And then I ask them simple questions of like this, of how the moon operates and everything. And they can't even begin to even answer this. They don't even know. A lot of these guys don't even know how this all works. But then they blurt out these things that are so wrong when they don't even understand what's going on. Anyways, I won't rant on that. But the moon is there, but we just can't see it, okay? And so this will happen 1 day before the conjunction or at the end of the month, or 1 day after. It will be seen in the west in the evening. The moon reflects the sun's rays directly back to it when they are aligned and no light can be seen from the earth, okay? And the conjunction of the sun and the moon, afterwards, the moon proceeds out in its orbit away from the sun, and within approximately 1 day's time, it will have moved a sufficient distance for it to reflect a small crescent of light to the earth. All right, and this crescent will always be sighted first in the western portion of the sky, called to the horizon. And so Rosh Hashanah Tractate 20 actually talks about the moon won't be seen for 24 hours. So Rambam says 2 days, little, not really a big deal here. And continuing with verse 3, it says the first night when the moon is sighted. So basically what I said, but I'll just read it anyway. The first night when the moon is sighted in the west after being hidden, concealed, is the beginning of the month. And afterwards, 29 days are counted from that day. If the moon is sighted on the night of the 30th day, the 30th day will be Rosh Chodesh on the following month. If it's not sighted, Rosh Chodesh will be on the 31st day, and the 30th day will be included in the previous month. There is no need to sight the moon on the 31st night. Whether or not the moon is sighted, the new moon begins that night, for there are no lunar months longer than 30 days. So if a witness were to come and say, well, he saw the moon on the 31st day, the rabbis automatically know this is false because they understand the calculations. Okay? So the rabbis, the Beis Din, already knew the answer. They're only allowing the witnesses to come because the Torah says you shall have witnesses. But the witness, the actual eyewitness of the moon, is not even precise. The Beis Din are more precise, and we'll learn why. So we'll go to verse 4 here. Betzalel, if you don't mind. Yeah. Thank you, bro.
Yep.
Verse 4 says, when there are 29 days in a month, because the moon was sighted on the 30th night, the month is called chaser, lacking. If the moon is not sighted and the previous month has 30 days, the month is called me'ubar, pregnant, or malay, full. When the moon is sighted on the 30th night, the moon is said to have been sighted at the appropriate time. When the moon is sighted on the 31st night, but not on the 30th night, the moon is described as having been seen on the night of its fullness. Okay. Verse 5, I'll explain a bit more in a bit. Verse 5 says the establishment of Rosh Chodesh is based on the sighting of the moon, is not the province of every individual. Okay. It's not even the individual that sanctifies the new moon, as is the Sabbath of the weekly cycle. The latter instance, everyone counts 6 days and rests on the 7th day. The sanctification of the new moon, by contrast, has been entrusted to the court. Okay, it's been entrusted to the court. That means it's the Beis Din that are actually responsible for sanctifying the new moon. It's not even the individual. They're just a witness. The new moon does not begin until it's been sanctified by the court. And it is the day that they establish as Rosh Chodesh that is Rosh Chodesh. And this is implied by the verse, this month will be for you, which the Torah is actually referring to the Beis Din. So all these people that are saying, oh, it's the witness, you have to witness, the rabbis are doing this and that. The Torah tells us the rabbis are the ones that sanctify the new moon. And this month will be for you. The testimony concerning a new month will be entrusted to you. All right. Verse 6. The high court will make calculations in a manner resembling the calculations of astronomers who know the location of the stars and their paths in their orbits. They would perform careful research to determine whether or not they would be able to sight the moon at the appropriate time, the 30th night. So a witness, there's witnesses that may not even witness the new moon in the month. Why is that? Does anybody know why a witness may not actually be able to see the new moon? Anybody got a guess?
Meaning like cloud coverage?
Exactly. The clouds, the sky could be horrible weather, desert storms, I don't know, anything. Could be a very terrible windy night, whatever. There's nights where I go outside and I don't see one star, and I'm basically kind of in the country right now. And some nights I see the whole sky lit up, right? So the witness may not always be able to witness the new moon. What do you do then? So if the judges determined that it was possible to sight the moon, they would sit waiting for the witnesses to come and testify throughout the entire 30th day. If witnesses came and the court examined their testimony according to the law and verified the truth of their statements, the court would sanctify the new month. If the moon was not sighted and witnesses did not come, they would complete the 30th day, thus making the full month. So the rabbis still were the ones that sanctified the moon, even in the ancient times when the witnesses would come. If, according to their calculations, the judges knew that it was impossible for the moon to be sighted, they would not sit in session on the 30th day, nor would they wait arrival of witnesses, because if the witnesses came, they would know they are false witnesses, like explained before, or that clouds appeared to them in a form resembling the moon, but it was not the real moon. So the rabbis were masters of astrology. That doesn't make them crazy or witchcraft or paganism, like some of these crazy statements on the internet and stuff like this. And going on, verse 7, it says, it is a positive commandment of the Torah for the court to calculate and determine whether or not the moon will be sighted, to examine the witnesses until the moon can be sanctified, and to send forth messengers to inform the remainder of the people on which day Rosh Chodesh was observed, so that they will know the day on which to celebrate the festivals, as implied in Vayikra 23:2, that you will pronounce them as days of holy convocation, and it is implied by Exodus 13:10, and you shall observe the statute in its appointed season. So the rabbis determined the calendar, and if they did not do this, they had to. Hillel had to do this, because to keep Pesach and on the 14th of Nisan, to keep it in the springtime, to make sure everything was according to Torah, and Hashem gave the authority to the rabbis to do this. Okay, verse 8. The calculations and the establishment of the months and the leap years is carried out only in Eretz Israel, as implied by Isaiah 2:3, for out of Sion, so this is the famous saying we say on Shabbat, every Shabbat, Ki mitzion tetzei Torah udavar Hashem miYerushalayim. For out of Sion will emerge the law, and the word of God will emerge from Yerushalayim. If a great sage who received smicha in Eretz Israel left for the diaspora without leaving a colleague of equal stature in Eretz Israel, he may make the calculations, establish the monthly year, and institute leap years in the diaspora. If, however, it became known to him that a sage of his stature has risen in Eretz Israel, it is forbidden for him to establish the monthly calendar and institute leap years in the diaspora. If he transgresses and attempts to structure the calendar in this manner, his actions are of no consequence. We don't care, don't matter. And so that is chapter 1 of Rambam, Hilchot Hachodesh, and now we can discuss it. You guys have questions, everything.